Okay, hello everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us. Wow, we have a great number of participants already, 36 people online. We're just gonna wait for 2 more minutes to allow other people to connect, and we're gonna start our presentation. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Very good, right? We can see the screen. I don't see anyone, so if someone just can unmute.
We can see the screen.
Thank you.
See.
All right, so it's 3:04. We're gonna start. First, let me tell you good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third session of the Master Course webinar series of the VITALISE project and Age 2020 project. Before starting, let me introduce you the trainers for today. Here we are. Today we have on board Eudokimos Konstantinidis. He is a project coordinator of VITALISE, but also the chair of the European Network of Living Labs. Then we have Parakevsky Jurka. She is a managing partner of Anthology Ventures. Then we have Koen Berbor. He is our stakeholder strategist at Enel. Joaquin Garatea. He is the director of international projects of Gaia. And Beatriz Merino, she is a PhD researcher from the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. Finally, myself, Lady Enriquez, International Project Manager from Enel. In today's program, we have 6 different sections as follows. First, we're gonna start with the Living Lab basics. We know some of you are already familiar with the concepts, while others are just starting to familiarize themselves with the Living Labs. Therefore, we want to give the opportunity to everyone to align with the terminology. Then we are moving to the Living Labs as research infrastructures, meaning we will learn how Living Lab facilities provide resources and services for your research, and also how can it boost innovation in multiple fields. Later, we will hear how different Living Lab services can accelerate access to the market. And it is because of the nature of the Living Labs approach that prioritizes collaboration and user-centric approach that facilitates access to different resources. We will also learn about business model, business plan, and sustainability. We will highlight here the importance of having a solid plan to make sure your product or service can last and be successful in a long run. Lastly, we will give you a glimpse of the Living Lab labeling framework and the Enol evaluation. We will explain what criteria a Living Lab must meet to be certified and how the evaluation process works. Okay, let's start addressing the fundamental question, which is what exactly is a Living Lab? And the truth is that after numerous rounds of discussion and collaboration between researchers, practitioners, and Living Lab enthusiasts, we are excited to share with you today the most updated definition. And this is the one that the European Network of Living Labs is using. Then, a Living Lab. Living Labs are open innovation ecosystems in real-life environments based on a systematic user co-creation approach that integrates research and innovation activities in different communities, always placing citizens at the center of the innovation. But in other words, and in a more digestible way, we can say that when we talk about living labs, we refer to two main things. The first is a living lab approach, mainly saying this set of different methodologies of practices, activities that are focused on a user-centered approach that are focused on satisfying the needs of the users and users known as different actors in society. We are going to see this a little bit later. And then the second way how we can understand living labs is when we refer to a living lab real life environment. Real life environment where yes, this approach, this set of methodologies, practices, activities is being applied. To have some extra explanation, let me present to you some examples that can help us to understand the concept. Let's imagine this room, this hospital room. It's called the healthcare living lab. In here, we consider this as a living lab, not only because we have the technology, we may have all the professionals who are working in the hospital, but also because we invite other actors to be included, to be are invited to be in the whole process of the final user or patient. Let's see. In this living lab, we are taking care of a patient, yes, but it's not yet a living lab with only a patient. We need a doctor or a nurse. We also need the support of a psychologist. And why not? We also need the family member who is supporting this patient during the whole process. Maybe the patient also needs some technology that the living lab is using to monitor extra things. And it's very vital to have an ethics manager because, as we know, this is health and this is personal data and sensible data as well. Another example that we can bring is, for example, the urban living lab. It's a living lab in a street. It's part of a community. It's part of a city. And this space becomes a living lab when we start integrating and inviting different actors to collaborate. We have the public administration, yes, because they are the ones regulating all the rules that apply within this space. We also have the urban planners who are going to guide us how to construct all these spaces. We are going to have the infrastructure and the technology that are at the service of the citizens that are in this space. And we also have academics and researchers who are going to investigate and going to do more research on how we can use these spaces and how it can be more environmentally friendly for the communities, for example. And we also need some finances. So we have real estate professionals, we have commerce and retailers as well. But here we are also missing other actors. What are those? The citizens, the people who walk, the elderly people, the people who use bikes, the people who are mothers with the sons. So all of this environment, it constitutes a living lab. Now, another example, we have the agri-rural living lab, a very good space to have some crops. Then we have researchers to understand how to manage the space. We have the advisors. We have the farmers who are the hard workers in this field. We have also cultivation experts who are gonna give us some guidelines in how to treat these fields. And we are going to use existing and new technology. We are going to evaluate how to work with this. Finally, some suppliers, retailers, and the customers. So as you can see, we said that in a real life experimentation space, we have different type of actors. These actors is something that we call quadruple helix. And these actors are part of four main groups: industry, academy, public authorities, and citizens. And the most important fact within Living Labs is that we need to understand citizens and users as actors and not factors. Everyone has a say and everyone should be considered in the process of innovation from the beginning to an end. Why do we involve citizens? A study from Sweden has shown that the lack of involvement of citizens may lead to products and services not being used, a lack of transparency because some innovators and end users may not understand each other. There must be some frustration and production of a technical innovation instead of a social innovation because not everyone has been invited to the process. And finally, this may lead to a lack of trust, which is one of the main values that Living Labs brings, is this work with communities that allow communities trust about the process, that their needs are going to be heard, that their needs are going to be satisfied, but also that is a project is not going to conclude after the finishing date of that project. But the Living Lab helps the communities to understand how to make sustainable, how to continue a project in a sustainable way. Why do we involve citizens as well? There is a greater chance that to have user-friendly solutions, and the products and services are more likely to succeed because everyone will be involved and everyone will be kind of happy to have a say and the co-creation. So in order for this to happen, Living Labs have clear that there are six main elements or building blocks that move the Living Lab itself. And these are, we know that the principles of a Living Lab, yes or yes, is going to be multi-stakeholder participation. We have this quadruple helix invited, but we also count in the real life setting. We are not creating separate places where we're doing only testing or we're doing separate activities that are not going to be part of the big picture of an innovation. We know that Living Labs has as a principle an active user involvement. What I just said from the beginning to the end, it needs to ensure that the feedback of all actors is captured and is implemented throughout the whole life cycle of the innovation. Then, as we said, the final aim of Living Labs is co-creation, right? We invite all these different actors to co-create a product or a service. The Living Lab approach is not only one method. It does not use an only one guide point. It's a multi-method approach. We combine different methodologies that have been created in multiple fields. And the methodologies that are selected depends on the expected outcomes of the activity and of course of the stakeholders who need to be involved. The Living Lab itself operates as an orchestrator with the ecosystem and is responsible in connecting the partners with the relevant stakeholders. And in here, the question arises on why using Living Labs. Living Labs are particularly effective for innovation, co-creation, evaluation in real-world context. They provide insights into how people interact with different ideas, products, services, informing further development as well. And the important part here is that Living Labs are an efficient approach to address weak problems, to address complex and difficult problems to solve. They offer a participatory and holistic approach to solve problems and involving stakeholders in different areas such as climate change, social justice, health and well-being, education, learning. And in summary, Living Labs provide a flexible and adaptable innovation approach that can help create positive change in society by addressing these problems through a collaborative and participatory process. Later on, we're going to learn as well how in practice these living labs help us to there is innovation, for example, how these living labs help us to do a rapid prototyping, to spend less money in things that we normally would spend if we don't use this approach. At Enel, we have more than 150 active living labs, and we have discovered that all these living labs have different areas of work. And something important to highlight here is that one living lab can have 1, 2, or up to 3 or 4 areas of work. Depends on how they specialize. So here we have living labs that can work from agriculture to artificial intelligence, from culture and creativity to urban areas, to pollution, to water, regulatory learning policy. In the graph that you can see with the blue lines, we see the total number of living labs that are working in that area, that are part of the network. And as I said, many of them may be double counted in 2 or more areas for what they work on. In the right side, what we can see are the different offers that the living labs can give, the different services that they offer. Some of them are focused on helping you with the business model innovation. They can offer you some impact assessment help, help you with the co-creation methods and tools, some governance model, real-life experimentation, which is one of the things that is more desired, to say it like that, and the most expertise as well in stakeholder engagement around others. A living lab is understood as a 3-layer model. In here we have a macro, a meso, and a micro. And this is a model created by our researcher Schurman. He's part of the network. And as we can understand this, on the macro level, you have a partnership. On the meso level, you have specific projects that the living lab will perform. And on the micro level, you have a detailed research activities to learn from users and create knowledge. It is a way of organizing and understanding how living labs work and innovate. And I think with this, we can move to have more clear examples of how living labs work as a facilities for your research and that are going to bring you more resources for your innovation projects. Evdokimos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lady. Thank you all. Welcome to this series of webinars and courses. So I will try briefly to explain why living labs, why living labs are considered as research infrastructures and what do we mean by research infrastructures. So if we see how ESFRI, the European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructure, defines research infrastructures, we can see that they are facilities, resources, and services allowing to conduct research, and also scientific equipment and knowledge-based resources and infrastructures essential to achieve excellence in research and innovation. Next slide, please. And if we see also how the European Commission defines, or actually the keywords that are used for research infrastructure, is about conduct research and foster innovation in their fields. So our goal, let's say, in order to reply to the initial question, is to see whether living labs can be part of experiments, conducting research, and fostering innovation. In the next slide, you can see also that the new European Innovation Agenda mentions living labs as one of the pillars for enabling innovation through experimentation spaces and public procurement. There are some criteria that infrastructures should meet in order to be classified as research infrastructures. And you can see these criteria here, but I'm going to explain one by one with using also examples of our living labs in order to see that we meet this criteria. So in the next slide, we can see that it's important for research infrastructures to have state-of-the-art technology and also specialized equipment and tools that that would be impossible to find if you don't have access to this. And living labs actually have this, they follow this concept of trying to access high-tech and state-of-the-art technology, even technology that it's not on the market yet, either coming from a researcher as a custom or homemade, let's say, technology, or even technology that is accessible only for researchers, like it happened with the VR glasses some years ago. So Living Labs try to make sure that they have this state-of-the-art technology in order to make sure that they provide added value to the researchers, but also equipment that you couldn't access easily without having access to a Living Lab. Like you can see in the right figure with A and B, this is the centrifuge arm, which is an arm that creates a gravity. And the experiments around there are about supporting or contributing to the rehabilitation of post-stroke patients. And this technology comes from the rehabilitation, from equipment that was used for the rehabilitation of the astronauts. And on the bottom right, you can see a virtual, this is in Helsinki, a simulated hospital where you can see monitors and also not patients, but actually phantoms of patients where you can run experiments. So it's not easy to find such an equipment in many labs. And this is why this characterizes the living labs having access to these technologies and research infrastructures. Next slide. These infrastructures also should promote interdisciplinarity in the research, but also accessibility. And as Lady explained very well before, you cannot imagine that you have an experiment in a living lab without having different disciplines supporting, bringing the point of view of different angles. And also accessibility, living labs try to provide, and we have already designed and developed some technologies in order to make sure that living labs or the data set of the living labs are accessible not only from the physical place of a living lab, but also remotely. Next slide. As far as flexibility is concerned, on the right side, you can see some of the living labs services that have been identified during the VITALISE project. But, and also on the left, you can see some of the a more general approach of the living labs, the iterations that living labs follow in order to make sure that each iteration of experimentation makes sure that it will create feedback and value for the next iteration. So we create, after each experimentation, we create the knowledge in order to be used and not only the testing. But also you can see the services. And believe me, if you ask a living lab, if it could combine service 1 and service 2 in order to provide value for the researchers, they will find the way in order to make sure that this happens. So living labs are really flexible because their ultimate goal is to support excellence in science or providing, facilitating research. Next slide. Openness and skilled forces, two additional criteria for classifying an infrastructure as a research infrastructure. As far as openness is concerned, they say that research infrastructure should be open and transparent with clear guidelines for access, usage, and data sharing. And this is exactly what we do, especially in the realm of VITALISE. We provide a 2 days fast track. Its research infrastructure provides a 2 days fast track training where you actually learn about the guidelines on how and the framework on how you can accessing using the infrastructure, but also data sharing, taking into account IP sharing and GDPR and other frameworks and guidelines. But also living labs think of how they can provide capacity building in order to create the skills for people for 2 ways. One is, and this is provided by Enol, One is how can I design and develop and sustain my own living lab, but also complementary, which is provided by VITALISE, and this course is also part of it. How external researchers can have the skills, can create the skills in order to access existing living labs without focusing on how they can develop their own living labs. So it's about accessing an existing living lab in order to avoid wasting resources on recruiting patients or creating the infrastructure in order to conduct your experiment, rather than focusing on your own, on the main objective of your experiment. Next slide. Ethical considerations and data management. I think I don't have to spend more time on this, because it is clear that especially health and well-being living labs, where ethical and data management is priority number one, living labs have found a harmonized way in order at least to use a common language for ethical applications, but also using common data sharing mechanisms, or even to use common metadata in order to make sure that their data, at least they are findable and accessible. Next slide. Quality control. I know that Kun will speak more about this, but just to say that on the left, you can see that living labs share, as Lady mentioned, some common principles. And in this publication that Kun led, we explain what these principles are actually, or how these principles are evaluated by an all. On the right side, you can see the ongoing work on creating harmonized key performance indicators to make sure that at least we have self-assessment in order to make sure that we keep high quality. So we have both self-assessment, but also independent blind evaluation. Next slide. And the last thing that research infrastructure should have is sustainability. And through VITALISE, this kind of sustainability, apart from having access to projects and to researchers, we also try to provide an additional channel for potentially supporting sustainability. And this is done through Axel Lab, which actually is a platform where all the certified living labs are already registered. And external researchers, in order to have access to these living labs, they have just to post their need, to create a kind of suggested project with their need, and then they can have offers from different living labs on how they can support and how much it's going to cost, and then the researchers to select which living lab they would like to work together. Closing this, I would like to say that the problem, as I said before, of the researchers is that they want to access research infrastructures in order to conduct part of their study without wasting resources on creating living labs in order to make sure that they can use it. So what VITALISE does, but also beyond the VITALISE project, what the team and the partners that are here try to do is actually to make these living labs as accessible research infrastructures, providing efficient access to them from the researchers. I think this was my last slide. Okay, thank you. And the floor to Vivi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paraskevi Gyurka, and I will, thank you, Evdokimos. I will continue this presentation with addressing the question how living lab services can accelerate the access to the market. Next slide, please. So I will try to link this section with the definition that Lady gave us at the beginning of this presentation, a very well-defined, a very well definition of living labs. And I would like to add that, yes, living labs are user-centric, real-world environments that enable, but also they enable the development, the testing, but also the validation of new products and services or technologies. And I will give you how they can achieve this and how you as researchers or as innovator or as businesses can achieve the validation of new products and services within the Living Lab environment. So in essence, they provide a bridge between research and the market by offering this ecosystem that brings together diverse stakeholders, and all those stakeholders, businesses, researchers, and end users can collaborate to create better products and services for the market. Now, on how Living Lab services can accelerate the access to market, this is because of various reasons. And a key point is the user-centric approach that is used by Living Labs. So in Living Labs, the involvement of the end users is prioritized, and this approach ensures that all the products and the services that are tested in the Living Labs can be tailored to meet the actual needs of the users and their preferences. So the engagement of the users actually help innovators to create more market-ready solutions. And this process is becoming more efficient because they can understand better what the users' needs are. It also, a Living Lab environment also helps in the rapid prototyping. So Living Labs can help the innovators to rapidly prototype and test some solutions, some innovators, and they can go back and refine their products or services based on the feedback that they have gained within the Living Lab environment and with the engagement of the end users. And these iterations, as Evdokimos has explained previously, accelerates the development of these products and eventually reduces the time to market. Next slide, please. Then this early validation process that is being offered within a Living Lab environment actually helps innovators to test their concepts in a real-world setting before investing significant resources, either time or money, in large-scale production or a big market launch. So validating the products within a Living Lab environment help address the potential risks, help to identify any significant roadblocks in the development process, and eventually it helps to reduce the costly failures in the market afterwards. The collaboration opportunities that are offered within the Living Labs environments help the researchers build those collaborations during the testing and the validation process of their products and their services, but also they build a network of stakeholders, and this network can also be capitalized afterwards, after market launch. It is also important to say that those collaborations that can be advanced within a Living Lab environment can provide access to significant resources, to expertise from people that they are in the market, and they carry some knowledge and experience in specific market conditions, and those networks can speed up the product development and market entry. Next slide, please. Now, the market testing, because Living Labs is another factor that can accelerate access to market, because Living Labs bring together the diverse user groups, and those user groups might also have different demographics. They can test those products and the services, those new technologies, and this testing is possible to offer valuable data on how those products or services can be accepted by the market, or what are the potential adaptations, what are the potential refinements that needs to be done in order to fine-tune the product and fine-tune also the marketing strategies for the respective target audiences more effectively. In addition, There are living labs that have also established connections with regulatory authorities, and these connections helps innovators to easier navigate the regulatory landscape. This means that they have some help, they have some assistance in the process of obtaining the necessary approvals or certifications that might be required. Sometimes they are compulsory in entering specific markets which are heavily regulated, such as the health tech market and other markets. Next slide, please. Then the access to funding, this is another factor that can accelerate access to market, and sometimes living labs have connections to funding sources, either in the form of government grants, so they have access and they have already good connections with government agencies that design and offer specific grants to innovators, but also they have connections with venture capitalists, and this access to funding and these financial resources is a crucial sometimes factor for market entry and for scaling up operations of new business. And this real-world data collection that living labs provide is actually offering valuable information again on the performance of the product while it is being tested, on how the users behave and what will be their acceptance towards the product, and reveals some specific market dynamics regarding the specific technology. So this information sometimes is invaluable for refining those products, again, for optimizing the marketing strategies and for making informed business decisions on how to pivot sometimes the concept or the technology in order to better meet the market needs. Next slide, please. Another important factor that is also playing a significant role in accelerating access to market is the reputation and trust, building trust. And this is something that is established during the validation and the testing process, not only with the institutional actors, but also the end users who have the experience of testing the product, the specific technology, and is a very first step in gaining this acceptance of the first customers during the validation phase. And learning and adaptation, these living lab environments promotes the culture of continuous learning and adaptation. And this is crucial when we develop a new technology, when we are trying to develop a new business, just because pivoting strategies or pivoting concepts about a business, about a startup, is absolutely essential sometimes. And although there are a lot of examples where refusing to change the concept can lead to products or services that no one wants to use or buy. The living lab environment offers this culture of learning and adaptation, and this is essential in actually learning how to improve our products, our concepts, our services that we're trying to offer to our target audiences, and remain agile in response to the changing market conditions. Next slide, please. So overall, the benefits for conducting research and utilizing also the infrastructure that is available in living labs, it can be summarized in that there are standardized assessment tools and research protocols that are offered by the living labs. And this is while testing the innovations with a diverse range of stakeholders. And those assessment practices can be consistent across the ecosystem. So if someone wants to use a living lab in a different area, a different geographical area with different demographics, then living labs can offer these standardized assessment tools and research protocols. Then it facilitates the dialogue, as we mentioned before, with the whole stakeholder chain, and this allows innovators to uncover the technical or the systemic roadblocks to specific technologies, and this information is valuable to build more technically robust products or services. The real-life experimentation environments, or where all stakeholders are actively engaged, can produce more relevant and realistic validation for innovators. Next slide, please. Now we have two, let's say, approaches, but that we would like to explain why there is some complementarity in between the living labs and the lean startup approach. I will start with mentioning a saying from Eric Ries, that we must learn what customers really want, not what they say they want or what we think they should want. So this is quite important, and this is the fundamental principle on which the lean startup process is based upon. So the lean startup is explicitly positioned as an innovation management approach. The living lab approach, on the other hand, is very explicative in terms of the participating actors and the stakeholders that are active for the user co-creation and the real-life experience. So within the living lab, the experimentation with the end users allows for co-creating the solutions, for co-creating towards a direction that the product or the service that we're trying to build is better suited to fit the market. So both approaches are practitioner-driven, having said that. And within this table, I would like to, this is a summary of the lean startup process, and actually the living lab process. The major distinction between those concepts is the ownership of the process. So in the lean startup, there is a clear entrepreneur or an innovator or an innovation team. In the living lab process, let's say the ownership is often not so clear unless there is a living lab as a service. So many living labs now are developing and are designing and developing support services for the researchers in order to help them and assist them in the commercialization process of the results. Both approaches are rather complementary to one another. For the living labs, the lesson learned from the lean startup methodology is actually to incorporate a more structured and iterative process with clear decision making and ownership. And on the other hand, for the lean startup process, what we can learn from the multi-stakeholder interaction and the co-creative approach to innovation is that the living labs, the multidisciplinary nature of the living labs can be of a critical value because it allows startups to involve the most needed expertise at the ideal moment, given that most critical assumptions are checked. So in concluding this, we can say that living labs can be powerful instruments to implement the principles of the lean startup, and the real-life testing and the multidisciplinary approach they offer can generate more actionable outcomes. And by actionable outcomes, we mean commercialization, the actual commercialization, the launch to market of novel products or services of innovations. Thank you very much, and I pass the floor to Beatriz Merino.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to this module 3. Now we are gonna deep dive a little bit on the Living Lab business models, business plan, and sustainability topic. Next slide, please. Yes, starting from the basics, we can say at a high level that a business model is kind of a conceptual structure that supports the viability of an innovation, I would like to say, and explains how the company or the research infrastructure operates, makes money, and how it intends to achieve its goals as a general definition. However, next slide. I truly love this one. A business model describes the rationale of how an organization, it doesn't matter the nature of it, creates, delivers, and captures value. So in this regards, next slide, please. We have out there some methodologies, different ones. We have been talking about this in module 2, for example, but in this case, we are gonna focus on the straightforward methodology that is the business model canvas, really an easy to use tool to build your business model at a glance, following 9 building blocks. Next slide, please. We are going to start with the first one, that is the customer segment, but just for you to know, this is based on the Alexander Osvalder book, okay, that I encourage you to see the reference of this sub-module in order to deep dive or study afterwards, but it's really a book that is structured in an easy way to build your business model of your innovation. So starting from the beginning, the customer segments, what is this about? So coming back, lady, to the customer segments. Yes, so this refers to the specific group of people the company or the organization aims to serve. So in this step, you need to ask you some questions, as these are the 2 main ones. For whom are you creating value? And who are your most important customers? Once you have that, next slide, please. You jump into the value proposition. That is, what unique value does the company or the organization offer to the customers that you already defined? So here you have to pose you basically which one of your customers' problems are you solving, which customer needs are you targeting, basically, and what bundles of products and services are you offering to each customer segment, the ones that you are finding in the first step. So here, value is kind of, let's say, abstract concept. However, it can be quantitative, price, speed of service, or whatever, or qualitative. For example, customer experience, user experience, your design. These are kind of metrics to put in a measurement the value that is kind of an abstract concept. And next slide, please. What about the channels? The 3 elements that we have here is the channel, how the organization deliver its value from the value proposition to the customers. So basically, this can be performed through physical stores, online platforms, direct sales, or another methods. So talking in general, channels serve several functions, including raising awareness among the customers about the innovation, helping customers to evaluate, I'm saying customers, but I also would like to say users, to evaluate the organization's value proposition, allowing users to purchase specific innovations or products or services, and delivering the value proposition to the users. Next slide. 4 element, the customer relationship, how the company interact with the users, basically. This might involve, for example, personalized services, personalized relationships. So the most important questions to fill this step is what type of relationship does each group of customers or user segments expect us to establish and maintain all along the time? Which one had been already established, how costly they are, probably, and how they are integrated with the whole vision of your business model. Next slide, yes. The fifth element that we have here is the revenue streams. So basically one of the most important ones, how the organizations makes money, and this links directly to the sustainability that I'm going to talk a little bit later on. So this might include, for example, the business models that we saw the other day, all the types: subscription, advertising, marketing, other type of revenue mechanism that we already know. So here we can involve two different types of revenue streams. For example, the transaction revenues resulting from one-time user payments, or the recurring revenues resulting from ongoing payments recurrent times, not only once. Next slide, please. How about key resources? The sixth step here is to assess the value proposition. So this can be physically, financial, intellectual, or human resources. So basically, in this step, you should be posing to yourself, what key resources do your value proposition require? How are the distribution channels? How are the customer relationships? And also the revenue streams, which are the key resources that you need to assess the delivery of this value proposition. Next slide, please. Yes, coming next to the seventh step, the key activities. Basically, what are the most important things that your organization must do to make the business model real? In this case, you should be asking yourself, what are the key activities that the value proposition requires? Again, what are the key activities to make these distribution channels a reality? What are the key activities to make the customer or the user relationships a reality? And also, what do you need to perform these revenue streams? Next slide. Yes. What about the key partnerships? So these are who are the external organizations, the resources or the suppliers that your organization needs basically to work efficiently. So in this case, it can be useful to distinguish between three motivations for creating the partnerships. So here you have to target the optimization of the economy. You have to target the reduction of risk and uncertainty here to build these key partnerships. And also maybe you need to target the acquisition of particular resources and activities to build this network for your business model. Finally, and you can see here now that the picture is complete with all the building blocks, is about the cost structure. So basically, what are the main sources of cost in your business model? What are the most important costs? What are the key resources that are the most expensive, and which key activities are the most expensive? So you need to assess every and each 9 blocks, asking your questions about your innovation and filling this business canvas model. Next slide, please. So finally, you will get this kind of picture, but filling with all the answers of these key questions to be able to have at a glance the business model canvas of your innovation, your solution, your product, or your service. Now, next slide, please. Let's have a look of a real example. What about Netflix? So really a well-known platform that I guess that all of us use at least once in our life. So the value proposition is really easy, really straightforward: watch on demand entertainment. When, and where you would like to do it. So really key, straightforward, and really clear value. So what about the customer relationship? So we have, as we already know, and probably we notice it, we have artificial intelligence recommendations. If you watch something, then they recommend you something that you also gonna like it. What about the channels? Any device, and it's gonna be a mobile application. The customer segments, of course, the ones that love the movies or the series. What about the key activities? So they are doing kind of licensing, and they will need the development of the Netflix platform, of course. The key resources is the Netflix platform, the movies portfolio, because they have to choose what to put inside. And what about the key partners? So they have the cable companies and broadcasters, the producers, and the consumers of electronics, basically. And now going back to the cost structure and revenue streams, the revenue streams is the business model of subscription, which is well known, and the cost structure is about the product and licensing and the technology development of the platforms, basically. So quite a straightforward example just for you to know how to populate this business model canvas with an example that probably we all know. Next slide, please. So what is the role of Living Labs helping you also to fill this kind of methodologies? So basically doing this through the Living Labs infrastructure, basically we attempt to reduce the risk while you are developing an innovation. Of course, we can serve as multi-stakeholder collaboration, and we saw this before building the network. We can accelerate time to market, avoiding the value of death. We can help in the flexibility and adaptability of the business model, of course, because we can assess the user's needs, let's say, at real time, and we can adapt to the changing circumstances. And we can provide with open innovation to promote the co-creation with the end user and stakeholders to populate better this business model canvas. Next slide, please. Now, while we are talking about Living Labs, this is kind of another template provided with this reference that you can see here in the slide that you can download afterwards. When you are talking about Living Labs business model canvas, you can see that the building blocks are a little bit different because we are not talking about customer segments as such. We are including user segments, how to engage these users in our innovations, what are our key stakeholders. We are also assessing not only the value proposition, but also the key metrics and the impact that you attempt to do with your solution. And also, we are not only talking about the key activities and the key resources, but what are the unmet needs, the problem, and the solution that you are proposing. So this is an adaptable model from the perspective of a Living Lab that can support you while defining your business model. Next slide, please. Yes, this slide basically is for you to know from where you can download these tools of business model canvas or business model, for you to have this list and you can use it in your projects, in your innovation. They are mostly free, and also the ones that is in Miro is a collaborative one that you can use among your team. This is just for you to do your hands-on. And what about the sustainability? So sustainability has several dimensions that we can assess also in this regards, because in terms of environmental sustainability, we need to ensure the efficiency of use of the resources and minimize the waste, and promoting these kind of things in order to resource efficiency, basically. We need to target social sustainability, basically through stakeholder engagement, ensuring active participation from the different stakeholders, fostering a sense of ownership and self-responsibility from our innovations. We have to target also economic sustainability, for sure, local economic development, and also long-term viability. So that's why we also assess this part in the business models. And finally, we need also to assess the technological sustainability, meaning the scalability and adaptability of our technological solutions and innovations, and also the long-term support, meaning that we are assuring the continuation of these technological elements, support updates and maintenance in the life cycle of the product. Finally, the green, back again, lady, please. Yes. Finally, the green box is kind of horizontal sustainability activities that are crucial, that we cannot forget about them. That is the educational and capacity building, training and skill development and research and knowledge creation. They are basics to sustain. The governance and transparency, the open innovation and ethical considerations are also crucial to make your innovation into success. And finally, having an holistic approach, assuring the interdisciplinary collaboration between all the actors that are in the quadruple, but also in the quintuple helix, considering also the environmental dimension. So next slide. Finally, I end with this probably weird slide, but these are the reference for you, more studies, articles, and nice papers for you to read in regards to the business models in Living Labs. Thank you very much. Now, Joaquin.
Thank you, Bea. Thank you for very interesting presentation. It will not be for me easy now to present what I'm going to present, but I think that it is aligned in some sense because what I'm trying to present are some examples of living labs where we are working in. So next slide, please. We are working in different living labs in a territory. It is a territory that we will explain you later on, but it is a limited territory. It is a reserve of the biosphere or a natural park with a lot of limitations. I mean, in a natural park, at least in Spain, you cannot create new industries, not even polluting industries. So we needed to create something different. And we do believe that through the living labs, we can enhance and we can improve the situation of this territory, this area. Next one. So first of all, we need to analyze if our territory was a smart territory. You know that there are just different theories about the smart cities, that it is not just technology. I mean, a smart city, many people think that it is related to technologies or technology provision, but it is more than this. And I think that also Bea was explaining, in our case was related to environmental area. And we needed to measure if this was a smart territory using different parameters that you can see here. And we use a method that was brought by the Technological University of Vienna, that has been one of the main research centers in talking about smart cities and smart territories. So we needed to analyze if we can have a smart economy, smart people, smart government, smart mobility, smart environment, and a smart living lab. So we analyze all this in order just to start implementing different strategies toward this smart territory. Next one, please. So the answer was yes, we were a smart territory, but why? So we needed to have those indicators. If we were looking properly in a smart governance, in a smart economy, if we have smart people, that this doesn't mean just that we have literated people, university people. It was much more than deep than this, sense of belonging to the territory, high level of satisfaction. So there are different indicators. Smart living, what was, let's say, the indicator for smart living? Smart environment, we are a natural park, but more than this, there are some indicators out of this. And smart mobility, what means by that? It is not just a close distance, but also smart mobility has other considerations. We do have in the north some living labs related to mobility that work on this kind of a smart mobility. One of the most important one, or the referential one, is in Thessaloniki. That is one of the good examples of living lab related to smart mobility. Next one. So we needed just to analyze this and how to start developing living labs around this. No, our goal was, okay, we do have a smart territory, we have some needs, and how we can just make things happen, knowing that we cannot create new polluting industries anymore. How we can work on this improving this territory that is supposed to be smart, no? So we started to think what was our specialization, what was our strength, and also we started looking for niche opportunities here, talking about different stakeholders, but mainly the users, the citizens that was living in this area. It was very important for us, has been commented that my colleagues, the user, the citizens was the most important asset. And of course, working on this quadruple or quintuple helix that Bea was commenting. Next one. So we started creating, let's say, designing different living lab. The first living lab that we applied to all is called Bird's Living Lab, that also was awarded in quite, let's say, quite a prestigious prizes that was given in Strasbourg, and the award we will start at the end was for the unique model of user-centered open innovation and management of scientific and sustainable tourism. So we were very happy because they awarded us for something that means pure living lab approach. Next one. So we started to work on sustainability as a reference element, and also in trying to design living labs together with the citizens that were living there, in analyzing what were our specialization. So we decided to go for starting the approach for two ones in this area, Bird's Living Lab and Ocean Living Lab. Next one, please. So I will not enter on this, but for both of them, we have applied the Living Lab methodology. We needed to start building a strategy. Of course, we know the user-driven innovation, but we needed to build a strategy. We needed to get started. On the paper was everything very nice and in a very nice area with very good possibilities. We needed to ensure sustainability. Bea was commenting. We needed to try to start just ensuring sustainability, not just getting the money from the public entities. Join forces. This was just very important. The citizens at the center, the users at the center, administrations, companies, research centers, and university. And in the centers, of course, co-designing solutions that was interesting at the core of the citizens or for the users. Next one. So we started to think on this specialization, and we were just thinking on environmental monitoring. This can be a very important point for the living lab design approach, no? And why? Because also we have citizens interested in ornithology, citizens and the users that were in research centers, university, and companies working on this, no? But we do have a goal. Can we lead an international network for the exchange of products and services in ornithology and sustainable tourism? This was the hypothesis. Yes or no? Can we create something there? Can we start working on a living lab multi-methodology approach? So this was our goal. So next one, please. So yes, and we started working through projects. As Bokimos has been explaining, a research-driven living lab, that this was the case of the Bird's Living Lab, needed to work, in our case, on projects, on concrete projects. Of course, finally, these projects need to have products or services, and also the possibility to scale, to have a business also to new markets. So we started to develop projects related to something that we were good. We started to look for funding, but we started to think on the users and in the participation on the users, not to start delivering and creating products without the users, because this was useless, and it has happened in other ornithology, let's say, centers or research centers. Some large companies created the products, but finally the products or the services, they are not working because the users were not involved and were not interested. So we were able just to start creating these kind of things, and we start working in something very interesting related to climate change. We knew that the birds were a very good, let's say, indicator for climate change long time ago. Now we have the things more clear, but we knew that some birds will remain instead of going to Africa in this kind of world, but we needed to have some evidences, and the users were interested in having something concrete. So we start delivering electronic devices, electronic tools, together with the users in order to evidence if this kind of emigration of birds was approximate. And also the users, they were able to see where the birds and how they were just going in that way. Next one, please. So the project was successful. The administrations were interested as a potential user. The citizens were interested, and they participate together. Researchers were interested. So we have a pool of people working on this. And we started co-creating services out of these different projects. So we started creating projects related to sustainable tourism, related to education, projects related to research and development, and of course, welfare. We realized that in some other parts and in our site also there seems to be bird therapy. So we start working also on this because of the song or the birds or whatever. And also they permit to us to start creating healthy routes through the environment. So we start co-creating services together with the administration. The administration didn't have enough money to make this happen, but with the Living Lab approach, we started creating together with administrations and the users and the citizens, co-creating services, putting money and putting project and services there. Next one. So some examples, and also seeing what stakeholders were participating. Sustainable sport tourism. I mean, 10 years ago, we started also seeing that massification was very dangerous for nice natural park. How to try to avoid this? How to make the tourism more sustainable? So we start working with this, with the user, with the citizens that were there. So many stakeholders approaches us and told us we are interested in creating this sustainable sport tourism approach. So we started working on this kind of co-creation of services in this Living Lab approach, and we have a rugby club, football club, campuses, different clubs putting together with the administration, and they help us in creating sustainable tourism related to sport, services related to this, tested and co-created in our Living Lab. Next one. Also the cultural heritage related to this massification, how to limit the massification in tourism using a Living Lab approach. No? So we needed to reduce the impact of human activity. I mean, the citizens that were living there, the users of this, they were afraid because many people was coming. Not because because it was affecting also their culture. In that area, the Basque language is spoken. So they were seeing that the tourists needed to be part of it, needed to respect the culture. They needed to do this together with the citizens that were living there. And the administration were trying to co-create this, to feel to the tourists that they belong also to this territory, and they don't need to go just for buying things or taking pictures and coming back, but to be part of it. So the tourist as part of it, tourist as a user, the tourist as a citizen of this. So we make also some pilot in creating in 2 different events, following the Living Lab methodology and having the users, the citizen and the tourists in the center, together with different stakeholders. And this was also very we created and we co-created a service also for the future related to cultural heritage. Stress management was also having some success. The administration told us, look, I don't have money enough, but I am seeing that in this area, even though we have a natural park, stress is happening. We have a stress also in some sports related with children. Can you start co-creating a kind of services in order just to analyze the stress that is happening in some sports that we have in this natural park? And we started working on this with the users, of course. The problem was in children. It was a problem because working with children is always a problem also for the testing. We needed to work on the families. The problem was on the children, but them as a main user, as I told you, for the health issues is a problem because taking the data from them, making this. So we needed to have an intermediate bodies like the families, like the sport clubs and some others. And we use this kind of living lab methodology to try to co-create methodologies to help the children in this stress avoidance through this living lab approach. Next one. The second one that I want just very quickly to tell you, in the area, the population is aging. The young people is moving because we don't have industries. It's moving to the cities, to work in the cities. But we needed something. So the population is becoming old, and we needed something also to co-create some services also for them because the administration, as always, they don't have enough money. So we created under this umbrella, that one, and we worked this with different stakeholders, with the administration, with the city council, in culture, sport, seniors, the child people, the companies that were also interested in creating products for them, and working also on equality and participation. So we have different levels of stakeholders in the administration. Next one. I will work quickly. The goal was testing of product and services for the silver sector. This was the main goal. We needed some products. We need to create new industries, new products, and also co-create services for the administration, for the silver people. The hospitals cannot give this kind of services, so we need to create something, no? So we have some main line of action and how we will co-create services also for them. I mean, you will have the presentation. I will not leave, but the idea is to create a living lab to energize collaboration ecosystem between the main actors related to this well-being for elderly people. And this was the main goal. Next one. So we do this also taking into consideration the situation of the territory. And I will explain very shortly some products and services that the Silver Living Lab is working with different stakeholders. Next one. So one example, I mean, we work also with other living labs. The one that is in Helsinki, that our friend Teemu is there. And the idea was to promote the health through recreational soccer, football for elder people. How to make this happen? Is football healthy for elder people? So we start just testing, and if the test was okay, to co-create a future service. So next one, we co-create service around of this. Football is medicine. We know that for the elites, let's say for the store players, it's not. I mean, football is not healthy for the top players. But our assumption was, is it for elder people? For the training, is good for the mental health, not just for the physical health. Next one. We needed to test. So we grouped the potential stakeholders to make this hypothesis working on a living lab approach. We have research centers, we have the administration, and we have the users, the group of the people that we need to co-create this service, this product. Because the administration cannot give this kind of service. They don't have enough money. So we needed to co-create those services together with them. So we have them on board with this kind of living lab approach, and we make this happen. We co-create this service. And nowadays we have an elder football team that has been created to this, and they are playing also, and they are training. We have co-creating, we have this kind of methodology. So we have created service out of this for the elder people. Next one. Another one, I mean, some solutions that we needed to this. So we co-created together with administration a marketplace to facilitate other adults, access, and proximity to local businesses. We didn't want elder people is very used to buy online, to buy if they don't feel very well, to buy by catalogs and things like this. And we do believe that the administration thinks that we needed to co-create a service in order to promote also for the elder people, because they want to work, but they have problems to go to the local shops because of different reasons, no? So we were co-creating this service because on the one side, the elder people wanted, and also the administration and the local shops wanted. So we make this kind of stakeholders group together and say, what can we create? Can we create a marketplace? Can we create a marketplace to facilitate other adults to access to the proximity local business? And this is what we work. Next one. The municipalities were there, the elder people was there, the Basque government, and also the European program was very interested in working on this to promote on the one side the local businesses and to make also the elder people to go there. And this is what we have created. Next one. Another one, a holistic digital platform, because we know, and it was a demand for the elder people, they feel alone. In our territory, the houses are quite isolated. We live in a kind of, let's say, cottages, most of them, and the territory is very much dispersed. So they feel isolated. We don't say this, they say, the elder people used to say. So we needed to create something for them using the level of approach because they feel isolated this, no? So what can we create together with them, no? So they told us, why don't we create a digital platform? And you must say, for the elder people, yes, they are old, they are not stupid, and they like technologies. They like very much. Elder people, we feel for these elder people, we think that they are in the between the 65 till now we live a lot. So we have created this because of this territory constraint, isolated cottages around a central urban, but many living around. So we created this service. Next one. Next one. I mean, here are the methodology. I will not enter. It's a living lab methodology. So another one is for daily facilitation for the daily living labs. No, I mean the municipalities and elder people was saying, look, we are seeing smart watches there, and the elder people like, but they told us that they need something more simple at that moment. The smartwatch can be simple, but they needed some more simple, kind of bracelet. This is what they were telling us with the very, let's say, the letters in a different way. So this is what they needed, and we started working on this. And the goal was to make this kind of bracelet and also score silver, as we are saying, the elder people in our territory live in isolated places, so score services they were needed. Taxi service tool, I mean, more than buses, they needed a taxi, so the bracelets need to comply with this, but we need to make together with them home delivery tool, networking, and also some games approach, also for the design of this, a mobile application, of course. Next one. The stakeholders, I would say, the primary users were the adults, secondary users, also some residences, families, and so on, and a tertiary users. And also, this has been quite successful, as Bea was saying. We make, in most of these cases, a business approach. Next one. Remember this, something different. I mean, the realize, and I mean, in elder people, I mean, the idea was to prevent and detect cognitive approach. When the cognitive approach is there, it is very difficult. So since they live in isolated places, we needed to co-create services in order to prevent and to detect before the cognitive disease were there. I mean, this was a kind of a prey that elder people was having. They knew that they was in this kind of situation, and they tell us, we want something just to start working on this. We need a kind of service for us in this kind of thing. So we co-create services together with the elder people. Next one. And another one, it is called a Smart Bear, no? And it is just to co-create solutions for people that have problems or are having problems. I mean, isolated people that fails or that have problems because they have failed and so on. So knowing that they are in isolated areas, they were demanding, look, we need something. We know that administration is working on this, but apart from, let's say, for ticking a button, we need something also to try to prevent this kind of issues. So in order just to be more independent, we try to create together with them this kind of services. Next one. So some solution, and this is the solution we have in creating. This project is very much related to data. This is something that also Dokimos has presented. There are products and living labs that are data driven, but of course the research oriented living labs are very much working on data driven approach. And this is a project related to data approaches. We need to gather this data. The data, as I told you, from the children is very difficult to gather because of regulation and normative. With elder people, it's easier in some way, but depending on the stage that elder people are, you need to have other stakeholders that are the families. The families need to give permission for this data gathering. So, I mean, this is something that you may need to have into consideration. So next one, and also there. And that's all from my side, from these kind of examples. We have some others, but talking with the group, we thought that this can be the most interesting one. So thank you very much. I think that Kun, you. Kun.
We cannot hear you, Kun.
No.
Well, he's trying to fix some technical difficulties, but what I would propose is maybe if we can already share the link for the feedback for this session, so participants can already prepare themselves. It's a 2 minutes feedback form, and it will really help us to improve for our next sessions, but also it will help us to create better learning materials for the future. So if you check, I just can kindly ask to share the link in the chat. Perfect, here we are. So we have a question in the meantime, if it's possible to receive the PowerPoints from the presenters. So yes, we have created a repository of materials where we are adding all the presentations and extra materials, for example, this business model form today that you can download and print out. And we're also adding the recordings from every session. This is gonna be locked with a password that is gonna be sent to you by email, and only participants and attendees can access to the materials. So as soon as this is ready, I personally, Lady, will send you by email the link and the password that you can use. When we have access to the materials, we expect that by the end of this week, we have already all the recordings from module 1, 2, and 3 uploaded, and that this content can be shared with you.
Okay, do you hear me now?
We do hear you, Kun.
I don't know. I think I know what happened. I'm in a hotel and the Wi-Fi switched to the other one. So maybe that was the reason. Sorry.
No worries.
So I was explaining, I was first thanking Jochen for the many examples and knowing that he can't go on for days if he wants. So we should organize a separate thing on it, probably. And I can have a quick go on what we are doing on the last 2 years and relating actually to some of the things which were mentioned in the previous presentation. So we are working on a standardized evaluation framework, the paper which Dokmos was mentioning earlier, and trying to find a better way of assessing maturity of living labs as ecosystems and in the tree model layer modeled approach. If you can go to the next slide, lady, it's actually the one explaining what we have done. So it's how do we standardize this so that we can start comparing health living labs with other living labs, with city living labs, because they have all their common elements, which you were explaining earlier, lady. The living lab literature tells us that we are some kind of lacking this. And what we are trying to build right now within the VITALISE project, and we are closing into the end of it, is building a self-assessment tool for living lab practitioners to assess their maturity on the living lab kind of way, but in the 3 levels. So because the current one which we are using is focusing more on the meso level, if you still remember, it's about the project level. But if you go to the slide, I think I added one with the levels. No, you can skip this one. Sorry. Okay, it's not there, but I'll explain. So you have the macro level, which is the constellation of the partnership, building a long-term strategy with all those partners, and then implementing all those different living lab projects, which is the meso level. And then the micro level we see as individual activities which you organize either inside living lab projects or for the macro, the support of the macro level. And micro activity could be, and I know you have one session coming up on co-creation and co-design. Let's do a brainstorm, a hackathon, an experiment. These are the micro levels. So we needed to fix the fact that it was more focusing on the middle level and the bottom level and was excluding the macro level. So why is that necessary? Because if you want to become a sustainable living lab in the long run, referring to what I forgot your name, apologies, about the business model, then you need to focus on the macro level more. So what we started doing real quickly is collect all the existing materials which are there at the email network, external frameworks, the work that's been done by Timo and all my friends in VITALISE. And then we started matching KPIs and chapters and stuff like this. And similar to this, parallel to this, we created a pilot group of practitioners from the eno network, from Forum LSA, and even externals. And then we started co-creating with them. Okay, what should that be, that framework? That was the first step. So if you go to the next slide, I suppose I'm showing the paper again. Yes, there it is. So we came up with a standardized framework. And if you click to the next, then you see the standardized framework. And it has 6 chapters and 15 criteria. And it's focusing on the strategy of the living lab, the long term. It's the business model again. It's the strategy, meaning what is the vision and the mission, who is involved in that mission, what is the roadmap, which projects are you envisioning, that kind of stuff. Culture and collaboration is how do you organize that in the long term? How do you interact with partners on the macro level and stuff? Then we dive into the operations, looking at the human resources of your living lab team. I don't know if already there was a presentation earlier in one of the viewers' sessions on the different living lab roles in a team of a living lab. So that's in the human resource part. The operations is about the amount of projects, the time spent on it. Equipment is about which kind of materials do you use in the living lab. Infrastructure, like those bracelets, which Jochen was mentioned earlier. Infrastructure, I think Jochen was covered this quite well. And then openness, how open to new ideas and new partnerships and new ways of working are you actually? That's chapter 3. Chapter 4, how user-centered, putting citizens always at the center. That's this chapter. And then down to the last two, it's looking at the impact and the co-created values which you are creating with all those different Living Lab projects at your Living Lab. And the last one is back to the macro level, because we know from all that research which we were presenting in a few slides that scale up of solutions, scale up of products, scale up of services, all from the business model canvas again, will increase the stability, financial stability and long-term stability of the Living Lab. And next to this, we know that harmonization of these kind of tools, services, and products will lead to the longer sustainability as well. So that's where we started to build the self-assessment tool. So if you now go to the next lady. So what we did is we started reading 175 papers. We added 20 frameworks of KPIs and assessments which were already existing. We started validating all those criteria and describing them so that everybody understands them in the correct way. We clustered them. We came up with the first KPI table, and then we continued to the next slide. All this was done by the pilot group as well. And by the way, next lady. Afterwards, we validated the KPIs which we came up with. That's what Yves was showing earlier. And then based on that analysis of all those different groups which were validating it, by the way, these were Living Lab experts from the academia world, ENOL members, Forum LLSA members, VITALISE members, council members of the ENOL, and last but not least, projects, because we are involved in many projects within ENOL, so we started asking in different sectors whether they understood it in the correct way. So we came up with an iterated KPI table, which you see on the right hand. If you get the slides, you can dive into it. I'm not going to read the 35 KPIs right now, but based on that, we went on. If you go to the next, and we developed scoring tables. We have developed the first draft of a self-assessment survey with questions covering those KPIs and weighting them by those scoring tables via those formulas at the bottom. And we are piloting this really soon with practitioners from Living Labs. And on top of it, we added a Living Lab lexicon list of terms which needs to be explained. So like you were saying, lady, in the beginning, we have a fresh definition of what is a Living Lab. We will create definitions of what is the business model of a Living Lab, what is the governance model of a Living Lab, so that everybody understands exactly the same by answering the questions. And because otherwise things get interpreted wrong. So right now, I don't know if there's, I think it's my last slide. Right now we are validating those questions. So I cannot show you what kind of questions there are, but it's like question. It's actually questions based on all the previous presentations, like which infrastructures do you have in your Living Lab? Which kind of projects are you running? Which kind of people are involved? Which kind of customers do you envision? And so on and so on. So it's a list of 31 questions, and we limited ourselves to a maximum of 35. So there's a little bit of flexibility, but the self-assessment will hopefully come in a first draft by the 1st of January. So that's the plan. And well, we will still be there with VITALISE in January, so I'll be more than happy to host a new webinar to explain what the final outcome is. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen right now. Good. And now, is there any question from the participants that you would like to write in the chat? We don't have yet. Something that came to my mind, Koen, while you were explaining regarding the different roles that we have within a Living Lab, I think we can provide that one-pager information to our participants from today as well. So we are going to include in learning materials.
You have it, lady. I don't need to send it to you. You have it.
Yes, yes, we're going to include that as
Just
well.
very quickly, the internal roles which are defined are a Living Lab manager taking care of the macro level and defining projects and making sure that the financial sustainability and the strategic roadmap are covered. The second one is what we call a human interaction specialist, but most people of you will call it researchers, knowledge generators, defining the ways of interacting with all those different stakeholders. Then you have project managers. Let's say that you have 3 projects. Usually then you have 3 people or 1 doing the 3, but managing one specific Living Lab project. The fourth role is what we call a panel manager. The panel manager is the community guy. So he is connecting all the stakeholders, making sure that all stakeholders involved in the project know what is expected, when it's expected, how it's expected, what they can get out of it, and so on. And the last role is what we call a pilot manager, which is kind of if you are going to do some more complex technical setups. He or she, of course, has the technical background to make sure that everything is set in a proper way and that nothing is exploding or houses are burning down or stuff like this, and that he is able actually to translate the sometimes very complex technical processes into close collaboration with the panel manager so that all stakeholders are informed in their own language, let's say. So this quick view on that slide, which you will receive then by lady.
Yes. So we have a question, and it's in terms of academic production and evaluation, are there any journals that have been favorable to foster the Living Lab discussions?
There is no Living Lab journal in the world, and we are dreaming of one, but it takes a lot of effort. The TIM review used to be a very Living Lab friendly, let's say a TIM, that stands for Technology Innovation Management. They publish quite a lot of special issues on Living Labs. Of course, you have the Open Living Lab Days proceedings. We are organizing our Open Living Lab Days conference every year, and we accept approximately, what is it, 35 to 50, depends from year to year, top papers. So that's a very big cloud where you can find it. And then another conference where you could look at, which is having a special Living Lab track and therefore a lot of publications around Living Labs, is the ISPIM. It stands for International Society of Professional Innovation Management. So there you can find also a lot of Living Lab related papers. Of those 2 conferences, actually the most highest scored were usually invited to those special issues which I was mentioning in the TIM review. And well, I think this is a perfect moment, but we will have a knowledge hub next year where, of course, we hope to get any paper on Living Labs in the world, but that will take some time to gather them and then classify them and then put them available to our members. And if they were publicly available to the world, then of course we are not going to put it after a wall, then you can find it publicly as well. But that's still work in progress. I hope that answers your question. And if not, please just raise your hand.
Yes, that goes for Keiko, who says thanks.
There you go, Keiko.
So yes, in case you also want to explore more materials, if you go to the website of ENO, you are going to find also a huge repository of publications and also other research papers that we normally work with and we normally collect from all different projects we work with. In this sense, if there is no more questions, thanks a lot for the 14 people who have completed the feedback form. We really, really appreciate it. If no more questions, I would say we can close this session. And we meet next week with the 4th module. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.